All right. Well, I have missed my time in the tavern. Unfortunately, I am again not in the tavern. Fortunately for me, I'm in Hawaii. So, there are trade-offs. The tavern's great, and I love being there every time I can be. It just seems like forever since I've been there. But Hawaii, that's hard to beat. So I'm not usually a big I don't get super excited about going to Hawaii just because of the time it takes to get there and get home. Once I'm here, though, I love it. And for those of you that have not seen any of our posts about this, my son, my youngest son, Rhett, and my soon-to-be daughter-in-law, daughter-in-love, I like to say about the girls that are married to my boys, is Lucy and Rhett are getting married here in Hawaii. So that's why we're here, and it's hard to take time off. So I couldn't skip another tavern. Last week I had to do just the really quick 200 pastors in the tavern again, like we did a month or two ago. But this one was last Monday was in Michigan, and man, the week before that I couldn't do the tavern. The week before that I couldn't do the tavern. So anyway, I've just missed having the opportunity to comment on some of the things that are out there and to get your comments in the chat and answer any questions that you have. So we'll try to catch up today because honestly, I don't have. I'm not doing Flashpoint tonight because of being in Hawaii and not sure what my connections were going to be or what my background was going to be. Doesn't look bad, but it's not nearly as beautiful as the other places that we are checking out in Hawaii and where the kids are going to get married tomorrow. But since I'm not going on Flashpoint, I got all the time in the world. Well, not really. We're doing a rehearsal dinner here in a little while. So let's just let me just try to catch up on a lot of things that have happened in the last few weeks that I haven't had a chance to really talk much about. Now, there's a lot of good, there's a lot of bad, and there's a lot of ugly. And so back to my old good, the bad, and the ugly that we used to do from the front porch back at home in Dripping Springs, Texas. This looks a little bit like a porch. I'm basically on a balcony right now, and I'll try to repeat some of the things that we were able to do back then. Now I should probably let me open up the chat real quick, make sure you guys can hear me okay. And thank you, Ryan. Yes, congrats to Rhett and Lucy. Super excited for them. They are very adventurous. I don't know if you happen to see the 90-foot cliff jumping video that Rhett just released. I shared it on my social media because he was literally, unfortunately, copying his pops. So I did that 35 years ago with my buddy Lance Gilly back in college, and my other buddy Justin Foster taking the picture from the boat. And so we ended up with this iconic photo halfway down the cliff. And I made T-shirts that said "Bungee cords for wimps." Anyway, in my young and stupid days, I did that, and my son came across that and decided that he had to do the same thing. So anyway, if you haven't seen that video, it's actually kind of entertaining and follows them on their journey to jump off Hell's Gate at Possum Kingdom. Where was I going with all that? Oh yeah, so he and Lucy both have a very adventurous spirit, and I'm looking forward to them getting to enjoy Hawaii, and all of us getting to enjoy it for a few days while we're here. But let's do the tavern from right here on this balcony in where am I at? I'm in Princeville, I think. We're on the island of Kauai. So we have not been to this island. I've spoken in a lot of churches out here in Hawaii, but almost all of them were on Oahu. So like New Hope and Leeward and oh man, I'm blanking on the name of that big Assembly of God church I spoke at. And anyway, bunch of churches out here, several of the Calvary chapels. So had some wonderful times coming out here to Hawaii. And I'm sorry if the wind. You guys let me know if that's too noisy on my earpieces. I can go get. I do have my microphone with me, and I could go get it. But I thought the wind would actually be worse on that, so I'm just using the AirPods. The best part of Hawaii is the coffee. Man, the Kona. I've had so much Kona coffee in the last few days. I'm loving it. Okay, let's get to the list, man. There's so. Oh, by the way, I also wanted to just kind of catch you up. Part of the reason that we haven't had a tavern episode in so long is the travel schedule's been nuts, but it's been so good, man. We've done these Liberty Pastor events. That's where I was in Michigan last week. We had two great events in Pennsylvania, one in Philadelphia, one in Lancaster. We've been to Virginia out at Liberty University, had a great time there at the Uncensored Freedom Summit, and man, it just seems like everybody was at that. Let's see, we had, and actually, it's the first time I had heard Scott Jennings speak in person. I've watched clips of Scott. He's the guy on CNN that is just always just mopping the floor with the other commentators. He's always the only conservative. It's usually him against 4 or 5 of them, and he does phenomenal. So no, I did not end up in the hospital after my jump. One of Rhett's best friends did. Okay, so they made the mistake of jumping 3 instead of 2 and did not plan out where they were going to land. And anyway, long story short, one of them does end up in the hospital. Actually, he's practically family, and so it was a little scary for a while there, but all is well. Ended well anyway. So where was I going with all that? Yeah, so Liberty. We went to Liberty. We're headed to California. Going to be with Scarlett and at Rob McCoy's church this Saturday night and Sunday. We'll be in Dallas at the Pro Family Legislators Conference just for Saturday morning. The conference goes Thursday through Sunday, but I'm only going to get to be there for late Friday night and Saturday. We're actually flying directly there from Hawaii, and then directly from there back over to California, and we'll do Rob's church, all 4 services there, and then head back home for a few days. It'll be nice to be home for a few days. So and a ton of other trips that I didn't even mention, but there's just been so much going on, and all of this, of course, is it is directly related to just this inflection point in time, this moment in history, this wind at our back opportunity, where the response to Charlie's assassination has opened minds and opened hearts, and people are quite literally changing the trajectory of their lives in order to make a difference, in order to be a Charlie Kirk that speaks truth, that learns to articulate it well. And of course, that's what Patriot Academy is all about. We've been training people for 25 years on how to do 1 Peter 3:15, how to be ready to answer for the hope that is within you, and to do so, Acts 4:29, with all boldness. That's us. That's what Patriot Academy teaches. That's what God's given us, the specialty of doing it. So we've trained thousands and thousands and thousands of people on those very things. And so they're literally coming out of the woodwork now and asking to be trained. And so that's a wonderful opportunity. It is also, I will just, I'm always blunt and honest with y'all. It is tiring, man. We are, I guess because I feel this sense of urgency that I don't know how long this window is going to be open, and there's such a hunger that I don't want to miss this, man. I feel like, it's like being in war where you just don't get to sleep, or you only sleep an hour or 2 a night, and you're just constantly going. And that's what we're doing. And so this, even the wedding here in Hawaii, I went over and spoke yesterday, flew over to Oahu yesterday to speak to some of our Constitution coaches and Convention of States friends, and some of the folks that have had us out at churches in the past. And I just couldn't imagine being here and not sharing with them. And who knows what will come from all of that? We may do, who knows what we'll end up doing in Hawaii. We were going to do a Patriot Academy in Hawaii, meaning our leadership congress at the state capitol 10 years ago. We worked really hard on doing that, got really close to doing it, and it just never panned out. But based on the response yesterday, we may end up doing that. So who knows? Okay, so let's see. Oh, thank you, Scarlett, for the times when we're going to be out there at Rob McCoy's. Let's see. Yes, November 15th and 16th, 6 p.m. on the 15th, and then Sunday morning, 9, 11, and 1 p.m. I'm gonna be in that 3rd or 4th service going, did I already say that? That's always what happens at these Calvary chapels where you do like 100 services a weekend. Anyway, it's gonna be great. Okay, so back to the headlines. Let's get to the good, the bad, and the ugly. There's a lot to cover. First of all, being here in Hawaii and tomorrow being Veterans Day, I definitely want to bring attention to that. I did not get to go to Pearl Harbor yesterday while I was there, but my son Trey and my grandson Arlen, they did get to go to Pearl Harbor last week. They came in a couple of days early from when the rest of us came, went to Oahu and did Pearl Harbor. And so my grandson Arlen is enamored with this story now, and it's kind of neat to watch him at 8 years old beginning to realize the price that is paid for us to be free. And that's the whole point of Veterans Day, is to render honor unto whom honor is due, as the Bible tells us to do. And for Veterans Day, man, that's just one day out of the year that we stop for a second and say, we couldn't do this. We couldn't be free. We couldn't have a constitutional republic to fight for. We couldn't be working in elections and policy and all the things we're doing to try to restore America's Constitution and rebuild liberty. Couldn't do any of that if it weren't for our veterans that are willing, have always been, and continue to be willing to give of their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor, to give of the best years of their life, some of them laying down their entire life, so that we can be free. And so let's not forget that tomorrow. Please look for some veterans in your life to be able to thank. And if you've never been out here to Hawaii and gone to Pearl Harbor, I highly recommend it. It will stick with you. And like I said, I didn't get to go over there yesterday, but have been there several times, and so glad that my son and grandson got to go. And so I highly recommend that you do that. Not just Pearl Harbor, honestly. If you haven't been to Arlington, go there. There's so many places. Not even just even going to places like Gettysburg and Vicksburg and any of those battlefields. We always try to do that with our kids when we were traveling. We try to stop at places like that to impress upon them the price of freedom and what it takes. So make sure that you're doing that, and look for an opportunity tomorrow to thank the people in your life that have been willing to serve. But then also remember how to thank them in a more important way than just saying thank you. In other words, that is important. We should absolutely do that. They need to know how much we appreciate them. But let's not forget Lincoln's words that we take increased devotion to the cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. So the proper way to thank them in the long run is to have an increase in our devotion to the cause. And what is the cause? Well, it's the very same cause. If you go all the way back to the Declaration of Independence, which we're obviously going to be talking about a lot over the next year and a half, he says that they declare the causes which impel them to the separation. And when you look through those causes all the way back to the Declaration and those 27 grievances, it always came back to the same things we're fighting for today. Grievances against tyranny, grievances against anything that violates our self-governing ability. Anything, as the Declaration says, that when any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. So the ends that Jefferson describes right before that are truth. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that God's not only in the equation, but at the center. The idea of life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. When government is destroying your ability to pursue your happiness, your ability to live out your liberty, all of those things, anytime government's doing that, we have a responsibility and a duty to do what those in history have done and stand against that and alter or abolish our government and make sure that we're preserving those liberties for future generations. And so that's why we do what we do at Patriot Academy. We are, of course, working to alter or abolish pieces of our government at the local, the county, state, the federal level. Federal level, we want to abolish the Department of Education, CDC. Anything that has anything to do with healthcare should not be done at the federal level. All of these regulatory agencies, from the Department of Agriculture to the banking industry, all of that need to go. They don't help. They only hurt. All they do is create friction in the market, all based on the lie that government will take better care of you than you will take care of yourself, or that a faraway government will take better care of us than our local community and our society, our local society where we've chosen to live and the people we've chosen to live amongst, than we will do. And so that brings me to one of our first news items, which is this 50-year mortgage thing that President Trump is throwing out there. Now, I mean, there's a couple of ways people are responding to this. A lot of conservatives and anybody that's, actually understands what that will do is saying, terrible idea, awful idea. All you're going to do is put people in more debt. Just look at the amount you end up paying over 50 years versus 30 years or a 20-year note or a 10-year note. It's always a bad idea to be in that kind of debt for that long of a term. We know biblically that the borrower is lender to the borrower is servant to the lender. So yes, of course, it's a bad idea to do 50-year mortgages. But here's the real position we should be taking. The government should have nothing to do with it. The entire reason for the 2008 financial collapse was government's involvement in the mortgage industry. Government should have nothing to do with the mortgage industry, should be completely out of this. It should be between you and your banker or a mortgage company. You prove to someone that has money that you are capable of borrowing that money from them to buy your house and making the payments until you pay it off. And you make sure that the asset is worth more than what you owe, so that if you end up not being able to pay it, that lender can repossess it, sell it, and get their money back. That should be between you and the person you're borrowing the money from, not government. Government should have no say in this whatsoever. Government's involvement in the financial markets always messes it up. Always, especially when it comes to private things like this, where it's, you're borrowing to buy a car, you're borrowing to buy a house or start your business. That should entirely be between you and the lender. Government out of it, just completely out of it. And it shouldn't. And then if you want to do a 50-year mortgage and somebody wants to loan you the money for a 50-year mortgage, that's between you and the lender, not between you and the government and the lender. You want to do a 30-year mortgage. I mean, you should always, if at all possible, choose the shortest term possible to get that debt paid off, because you'll end up paying less for the money that you're borrowing in the long run. That's just smart and biblical as well. Or not borrow at all, pay as you go. I haven't always been able to do that. I've had to borrow to buy a home or car or whatever, and then as soon as we can, we pay them off. So anyway, I think, yes, I agree, pushing people into 50-year mortgages is a bad idea. Using government to do that at all is a bad idea. So no, government shouldn't go start guaranteeing 50-year notes. We should have never guaranteed anybody's note. The government is not capable of doing that, because what are they guaranteeing that note with? Your money and my money. Barney Frank and those moron congressmen that have never done anything in their own lives to make actual money, they've only used our money, that create all of these regulations and these laws and create all of these programs that force people to loan money to people that can't pay it back. That's why we got in the mess we got in. We literally, government forced banks to loan 100% of the value of the home, in some cases 105% of the value, so people would get into those loans. First time they have a hard time paying, they walk away, and now the lender doesn't get most of their money, doesn't get all their money back, and it just created a complete fiasco, all created by government. So just get government out of it completely. That's the smart thing to do. So that's the 50-year mortgage thing. Okay, what else did we have? Let's see. We've got the talked about Veterans Day, 50-year mortgage. Okay, let's talk about the Israel issue, and of course that will then lead us into the war on the right that is happening because of Tucker having this little twerp on, this Fuentes racist Nazi smart aleck punk kid. I'm sorry, I can't help it. Every video I've seen of this kid, he is the attention. Just, he cannot stand not having attention. He is that kid. Every one of us had people in our school. There was somebody in the class that was like this. They just had to cause a scene. They had to act stupid or silly or say outrageous things just so that people would look at them. They just had to have attention, no matter what it cost them to get that attention. That's this kid, man. He is so obnoxious, so disrespectful, so disgusting and vile. I can't stand it. I'm not even watching any more clips, and it's just it is shocking and appalling to me how many young people are drawn to this kid. Now, my kids are trying to explain to me why, and I kind of understand, but not to the point that I'm going, okay, that kind of no. It is incredibly disappointing that we were so stupid in our racism against white people or anyone, that was in the majority. The whole Marxist, going against the people that are in charge, and if you had any power at all, then you were, evil, and you couldn't get rid of that. Obviously, all that was so stupid that it bred a generation that actually is entertained by and appreciates someone being vile in their response to it, not being intellectual, not being good in their debate or their logic and pointing out why racism is always wrong and evil, and why you never paint a broad stroke of attributing character traits to someone simply because of the color of their skin or their nationality. Instead of making the intellectual arguments, it's just throwing bombs, man. It's just saying the most vile, disgusting, sarcastic, obnoxious things you possibly can to get a rise out of people. It's a mob mentality. It's the kind of thing that in the French Revolution was extremely effective. It's the kind of thing that literally led to the rise of Hitler and Stalin. It always leads to the rise of a tyrant, because it is a mob mentality tapping into real frustration, real anger, real hurt, but at the lowest common denominator. It is the refuge of a scoundrel. It is a disgusting way to create a following. So that's how I feel about this punk kid that is literally a twerp. I mean, I just can't even, the way that he mocks Erica Kirk, the way that he the language that he uses to describe how he has, impregnated Turning Point USA, the hatred towards Charlie Kirk that he had for the last 8 years. Charlie Kirk called this guy vermin, vermin. That's how Charlie Kirk felt about him, and so to me, it is in fact an absolute slap in the face and betrayal of Charlie Kirk for Tucker Carlson to have him on his show. Now, you can say, Rick, that's just free speech. We're supposed to confront. Look, I love civil discourse with people with whom I disagree. I love having intellectual combat where you take an issue and you debate that issue. I love seeing things like Allie Beth Stuckey going on Jubilee and taking on 20 progressive Christians and one by one destroying them with intellectual arguments and a smile on her face, the happy warrior that is able to dismantle and tear down the arguments of the enemy. That's the kind of civil discourse we should be looking for. Do not be fooled into thinking that that's what Tucker Carlson did with this Fuentes twerp. What Tucker Carlson did with this kid, who's a poison. He is an absolute poison for anyone on the right. He is giving the left and the moderates exactly what they want because he's giving them a racist Nazi. I don't even think you can call him, right wing. I think underneath it's the same tactics as the left uses. He is, and James Lindsay had a fantastic discussion on this. He's doing exactly what the LGBTQ radical Marxist left has been doing to tear down societal norms, shock and awe, and become so obnoxious, the drag queens and everything else, that you're what you're doing is you're destroying the societal norms. You're destroying decency, and you're making it where there are no norms, there are no standards. That's what this kid's doing with his vile spewing of hatred and sarcasm and mocking and all of that. Okay, and so when he does that, and then Tucker normalizes it, Ben Shapiro is absolutely 100% correct in saying this is a cleansing of the style that is obnoxious and the positions that are evil and wrong by bringing him on to this incredibly popular show and then not even challenging him on the most vile things that he's done. And of course, Tucker's, and I used to really like Tucker. Look, I've gone hunting with Tucker. I've had great conversations with Tucker. I really enjoyed the guy. But something has happened to him. Now, he says he wrestled with a demon. I don't know if the demon won or what, but something has happened to Tucker in the last year and a half, 2 years roughly, that is it is not good for him or for the movement. And so for whatever reason, and Tucker, said on the Megyn Kelly interview the other night, hey, go do your own interview. If you don't think I was aggressive enough with him, get your own show, do your own interview. And he's right. He's absolutely right. And Shapiro said the same thing. Yep, that's right. Tucker did exactly what he wanted to do. He cleansed Fuentes for a whole new market to now latch onto this anti-Semitic, race baiting, divider in the conservative movement. So I just think it's a massive mistake, and now it is dividing conservatives, and some are saying, yeah, but Rick, free speech. You say you like civil discourse, you should have him on and talk about that. No, because here's the thing: when something is so disgusting and so vile, and all you're going to do is raise that person's platform and awareness by debating them or giving them an additional audience. My audience isn't as big as his, so I wouldn't be giving him a bigger audience. I'd be giving him an additional audience. I will never allow that guy to come speak at Patriot Academy or be on any of our programs, because when you go as far as he has gone, you've burned the bridge. You have gone so far that you must be, in my opinion, and I think Newt Gingrich articulated this well the last couple of days, you must be shunned. There is a proper place for ostracism. There is a proper place to say, I'm sorry, but the things that you have said and done are poison, and I will not help you get a bigger audience or be drawn to more people. So that's actually, and here's my main point I want to make with this. That is free speech at work. Free speech, I absolutely think that he should have the right to say what he's saying on his platform, on his show, and to his market. But free speech then requires, if you're going to have an arena of ideas, if you're going to have iron sharpening iron, if you're going to have a marketplace of ideas where everybody keeps saying, hey, let him have his bad ideas, and if they're bad ideas, the market will shoot him down and he will not last. That's what I'm saying should be done. That because his ideas are so vile, people like me and Ben Shapiro and others are saying, we're going to push back on that. We're not going to say, oh, well, free speech, go say whatever you want as much as you want, and we encourage you to go do it. No, we're going to say, stay away from this guy. Don't go listen to this guy. Don't put that poison in your brain or that attitude influencing how you articulate and do your civil discourse. So I believe that shunning and saying no to someone like this or Candace Owens is actually part of the free speech process. It's part of the marketplace of ideas. And by not speaking out against it, by saying, oh, no, we want everybody to have an equal platform, is basically taking away the sharpening. It's taking away the arena of ideas and the competition of ideas. It's taking away the ability for the marketplace to get better. There's no competition there. You're literally just saying everybody gets a platform. No matter how bad your ideas are, all ideas are equal. Well, that's not true. Some ideas are bad. Some ideas are poisonous. They're not healthy. They're certainly not healthy for the country as a whole, and they're definitely not healthy for a movement. And so that's why Charlie Kirk completely shunned this guy and said, we are not going to let this guy have a platform on our platform. We're not going to give him any airtime, which, I'm making the mistake right now. I don't know if it's a mistake. I do think it has risen to the level that there has to be pushback. There has to be some Ben Shapiro's and me and whoever else speaking out against this. Otherwise, a lot of these young people, I get this too, and my son was trying to explain this to me, by shunning him and saying not to listen to him, we're going to push some of the young people to him because they're just going to knee-jerk reaction say, well, if you're saying not to listen to him, that tells me I need to listen to him. I get that. That's the youth rebel thing. I was that way. So, I understand the risk in me pointing out the poison and saying, don't drink the poison. There are some that are just going to say, well, because you said not to do it, I'm going to do it. And they're going to go drink the poison. And Lord willing, and we'll pray that they will eventually also be turned off by the sarcasm and the vitriol and the evil things that this guy says. And there is no context, by the way. For those of you that are going to say, well, Rick, you got to go watch the whole video and the context. There is no context where it is okay to say the things that this guy says. There's no such thing. You cannot put these things into a context and say, oh, well, it's okay to say that as long as you watch the whole video. No, I'm not even going to repeat this stuff. It is so bad. There is no context where it's okay. All right. Okay. So back to Israel, because that's at the heart of so much of this infighting right now, and at the heart of the growth of this this little Nazi twerp's audience. His audience is growing and began to grow specifically because of the Israel issue. So let's just back up and have some good civil discourse about Israel, and then I'll open it up to questions and whatever you want to talk about. So let's I think the right way to approach this thing, because the way it's been explained to me, the Nazi twerp's audience grew because he was willing to ask questions no one else was willing to ask. I'm not sure I agree with that, but that's what I'm being told. That's Tucker's thing all the time, right? I'm just asking questions. And shouldn't we be allowed to ask questions? Well, yes, absolutely. In fact, I think we should be allowed to say that we don't think Israel should get as much money as it's getting. You should absolutely have the freedom to say that, and that's not anti-Semitic when you say, I don't want anyone to get any more foreign aid, or I don't want Israel to get any foreign aid because I think the Middle East is a mess, and I don't think there are any winners and losers, and so I'm not giving money anyway. Some people are saying that. I think that's ignorant. I think that's completely ignorant of history and completely ignorant of the situation on the ground. I think that is absolutely morally bankrupt. If you cannot look at the Middle East and analyze what's going on in the Middle East and figure out who, okay, maybe there are no good guys, but actually there are in comparison to others. It's all relative because there are no saints, right? But if you can't figure out who our allies should be and who we should be going against, then you're not looking at this situation with any kind of moral compass. Okay, so let's take it out of the Middle East and let's just say worldwide. America should or should not have allies. America should or should not support allies. Should we be completely isolationist and say we're not giving a penny to anybody anywhere in the world, and we're not getting involved in any fights anywhere in the world? We are only going to protect our borders and pay attention to what happens right here in the U.S. That's a legit debate, okay? That's been a debate since the beginning of our country. George Washington warned against getting too involved in foreign entanglements. He didn't say don't get involved at all, but he definitely warned about getting too involved in that. So this has been going on for 240 years. We've been debating this since the Constitution was ratified. So that's a legit debate, and we can have a long discussion about that. My personal opinion is we should do a whole lot less than what we're doing, but that we should not do nothing. I know that's a double negative for you English teachers out there, just giving you a thrill. So we should be involved to some extent. How much and where, that is so debatable. And I am not a foreign policy expert. I readily admit this is not my area of expertise. I do absolutely believe that there are people that want to destroy America. There are not only jihadis around the world that hate us and call us the great Satan and call Israel the little Satan. And therefore, when they attack Israel, they're trying to attack us as well. Not only do you have the Islamic jihadi threat, you have the communist, the Marxist threat that is not only from China, but it is a whole nother animal. And then you have just the internal threat of leftism in our country. But just thinking internationally, there are people that want to destroy America. And so let's just take the jihadi side of this. I was always questionable about the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War in terms of trying to establish quote unquote democracy in these other nations, in these other parts of the world. I've always thought the soil was not tilled and not ready and not going to do well with a free society, with what we were trying to transport or export from America. But I supported going into those countries because I saw it as a way to drain the swamp. I saw it as a way to take out as many terrorists as possible before they came to the United States. So I frankly didn't care whether or not they ended up with a free government. I shouldn't say I didn't care. I'd love for them to have a free government and to understand freedom and be able to operate and but I also agree with John Adams that our form of government only works with a moral and religious people. And so whether or not that ever was going to last was not my reason for supporting going into those areas. I support taking out terrorists before they get to our soil if we can. So I think that's a good policy to have. Obviously there's a lot of gray there. You got to, how much evidence is there, and there's always room for corruption and abuse, and I get all that. But I do think as a nation we have a responsibility to protect our people, and therefore have an intelligence agency and an apparatus that is trying to find the people that are trying to destroy us and destroy them first. That's a legitimate function of government. So we can have a whole debate about that, but I'm just going to start there, okay, in terms of the Israel question, that we should, in fact, be on the offense and aggressive and stopping people from killing our people. Okay, that I hope we can all agree on. Maybe not. Maybe there's some out there that don't agree with that. But I'm just telling you that's where I come down on the foreign policy question. That then means once you take that step, that yes, you have to take additional steps to spend money in foreign nations to be in a position to collect intelligence and data and find the people that are trying to destroy us and destroy them first. Okay, that also means that yes, we're going to have allies around the world. And that there is an interest, if we're going to be America first, then that means protecting America. And that means then having to put some effort into stopping people from being able to destroy America. That also means, and here's where it obviously gets gray, and there's people smarter than me, much better on this than I am. People like Frank Gaffney, who visited the campus and gave a great talk on this the other day. It also means that we need to, at times, come to the aid of our allied nations in order to prevent a World War II type situation where Hitler goes into Poland. Okay, if we stop him there, can we prevent a world war, right? Where, Saddam Hussein goes into Kuwait. If we stop him there and push him back into Iraq, does that prevent a world war situation? I don't have the right answer on all those things. I would want to be debriefed incredibly well by people smarter than me in order to make the call as president of the United States as to when we should go in and stop something from happening, or when we should write a check and pay for helping someone else stop a threat. So it gets muddy, obviously. But I would argue then at that point, we have to say, okay, who are our allies? Where do we have an interest? Daniel Horowitz made a great argument with the Patriot Institute scholars a week or two ago when he was there by saying, let's take it out of Israel, out of the Middle East. Let's just go to Taiwan. Should we protect Taiwan? Should we help Taiwan? If China takes over Taiwan, how does that affect America when it comes to all the chips that are in our weapons, all the chips that are in our industries, all of those things? And so should we be involved in helping an ally to make sure that we are protecting our economic interest? I would argue yes, that there's a certain amount of help and support that is required at that point. What about South Korea? Same thing. If North Korea completely takes over South Korea, is there enough interest for America first that we should be involved in that somehow, some way? So when you think about all of those scenarios, then the Israel question, I think, becomes much simpler. I think if we think of Israel in terms of just being an ally for Western civilization, for little d democracy, for the idea of free market economies, for the idea of self-governing and elective, representation, and all of those things that we say we're for, do we owe it to allies that support those same things and are against tyranny? Do we owe it to them to help them? And I think we do. How far we go is debatable, and that's why Congress should be involved in these discussions and in making these decisions. But for all of the people out there right now that have used Israel as the wedge in the conservative movement right now, why Israel and not Ukraine? Why complain so much about Israel when we've given 6 times as much money to Ukraine in the last few years since the 2 wars started as we've given to Israel? Why is it that it always comes back to the Jews? Unless you literally don't like the Jews. I don't understand. If we just look at this from a foreign policy perspective, we've done less to help Israel than we've done to help Ukraine. And I would say Ukraine is far less of an ally and a like-minded economy and culture and all of those things than Israel. I mean, Ukraine has suspended elections, is run by a reality star moron that is an absolute poser who has gotten incredibly wealthy off of our support, and in a region where we have not had near the interest that we have in Israel. We don't get near the economic benefit from Ukrainian inventions or medical devices or anything like that as we do from Israel. It's just not even in the same. It's definitely not the same hemisphere. It's not even in the same universe of what benefits. If you're America first, you should be looking at where do we get the most benefit. Taiwan, absolutely. Israel, absolutely. Ukraine, and yet we've given them more money than anybody. So if you're, and maybe you're one of those people that's saying no money to anybody. I can respect that. Absolutely, I can respect that. I don't think it's a viable option if we're truly America first. I think we have to still protect our interests, and our interests do go beyond the border. Have we done too much? Absolutely. I can't stand the fact that we have bases all over the world. I think Ron Paul was right on so much of this, but I am not an isolationist to the point of saying we shouldn't be doing anything. And I think most people aren't. I think most people recognize we have to do something. So Israel is literally protecting, helping Israel is helping Western civilization. And to create a moral equivalence between Israel and Hamas, to me, smacks of so much ignorance and lack of moral clarity. I don't think you're being intellectually honest if you actually try to compare Hamas and Israel on a moral equivalence. If you actually think that Israel should not be able to do everything that it has done in response to October 7th, then you should be just as critical of the United States and our response. And switch my audio. Is my audio still with you guys? Try now. Okay. Let me know if it comes back. Testing 1, 2, 3. Get a drink of my Kona coffee while we're seeing if audio came back. I don't see any comments that it came back. So, anybody? Bueller. Okay, somebody let me know. Okay, good. It's back. All right. Anyway, so think about what we did. We flattened most of Germany. We flattened significant portions of Japan. We killed millions of people in response to a few thousand being killed, and it would have taken in Israel 1,200 to 1,400. I forget how many were killed and how many were captured, but bottom line 1,400 roughly would be about 40,000 in the United States. Well, what do you think we would do as a nation, and why for what reason do we not support an ally doing the same thing? Like, what's different? Like, why are they held to a different standard than we are when they're actually in a more precarious position than we have ever been, right? You look at how small Israel is. We all know this. We all know they're surrounded by people that would love to wipe them out. And so when, and part of this too, I think a lot of the young people today that don't appreciate Israel's reaction and prosecution of this war, they don't know a lot of the history. They haven't been around, and they don't realize how often this happens. How the attacks from the Hamas, or before that the Palestinian Authority, are constant. They're constantly firing missiles into Israel, not only killing Jews but killing Arabs and Christians as well. And so, I guess if you're being dropped into society from a time machine and you have no context whatsoever, then you might see Israel's response as being not fair or not proportional to the attack on October 7th. However, if you know that history and you know what happens every time Israel stops prosecuting the war, then you realize that what they're doing is actually entirely proportional to what has been done to them. So putting all of that context in place hopefully changes this immediate knee-jerk reaction to why are we doing so much to help Israel. Are y'all still not hearing me? I don't know if somebody probably opposed to Israel had to turn their radio up so that they couldn't hear me. All right, you guys help me out. Okay, you can hear me. Great. All right. So anyway, that then brings us back to this debate that is happening on the right at this point. If you put it in the context of we should be helping our Western civilization allies, then there is no reason to be opposing Israel unless you're going to oppose help to anyone and everyone. And that's also a different question. Helping someone versus not getting in their way are two different issues as well. I know a lot of friends that are saying, let's just not help anyone, but let's not stop Israel from doing what they need to do in order to secure their nation and protect their nation, just like we would secure and protect our nation. I can respect that opinion as well. And we really don't give them that much help. When you look in the context of our foreign aid and how much we give, I mean, we give them about $3 billion a year. It's a drop in the bucket to the total amount of money that we donate and give to nations around the world. So, all right, enough on all of that. I hope that at least puts some of it in context and why I think the pushback against this. I'm just going to keep calling him the Nazi twerp. I'm not going to elevate his name anymore. I'm not going to say his name anymore. He's just the NT, the Nazi twerp. And we should absolutely speak out against it. Do not let this is part of why people have been trying to label Patriot Academy as all of these evil, horrible things, because people like this NT, this Nazi twerp, they go out there and they're loud and obnoxious, and people actually think that represents the right. That does not represent conservatism in America at all. Does not represent Republicans, certainly does not represent Christian constitutionalists, even though he claims the name of Christ and he's constantly using Christian terminology. It's an absolute bastardization of Christianity and truth. And we are completely opposed to it. We want to be very, very vocal about that and make it very, very clear. Okay, let's go to your comments, questions, and insults, and see what you got. Yeah, Rhonda, I didn't even get into that. See, I didn't even approach the biblical commands for supporting Israel. They've got all these arguments now that this isn't actually Israel. These aren't really the children of Abraham. And I mean, a lot of that stuff, I don't think it holds any water. I think I don't mind having that discussion and that debate, because at the end of the day, I think regardless of the biblical commands, just from a geopolitical America first agenda, that we should be helping defend Western civilization. If you want to go even further and say, okay, I don't care, I don't understand all the foreign policy, I don't make my decisions based on that, I'm only going to make my decision based on what the Bible says to do, then we get into the arguments about supporting Israel and why that's important biblically to do that. I understand that, I support that, but I don't even think that's the right argument to make with the general public. I think we have to stick with the geopolitical arguments in order to win this thing. Okay. Yeah, I think Candace has to be shunned as well. I think once you get to the point where you are blaming Rob McCoy and Mikey McCoy for Charlie's assassination, you've gone too far. You at that point you've lost me completely. I'm not going to listen to you. I'm not going to platform you or expand your platform in any way, shape, or form at that point. And Candace is just off the charts, man. She's lost it. She's literally, I think she's mentally ill at this point. She is so obsessed with being the special one. She's so obsessed with being the one that has a different take than everybody else, and supposedly the only person investigating this. It's not true at all. She has disparaged Turning Point. She's disparaged everyone at Turning Point at this point. She's completely exaggerated things that Charlie has said. For instance, when Charlie first came on the scene, and Charlie and Candace were both a lot younger, she's sharing all these tweets where Charlie was sarcastic about Ben Shapiro, 24, 25 years old when he's sharing these tweets, and Ben Shapiro was the voice of the youth on the right. And for these people that are saying that Ben Shapiro somehow was not as influential as I can't remember the guy. There's several people saying this and dismissing Shapiro. I'm here to tell you, I've been working with the youth for 25 years. There has been no figure, not even Charlie, that ignited as much of a fire in the youth when no one else had a voice that was reaching them like Ben Shapiro. Shapiro became an absolute rock star to the youth. I can remember the first time I just put a video that Ben made for us at Patriot Academy up on the screen, and the place erupted. They went nuts. They couldn't even hear what he was saying because they were so excited that he just sent a video to us. There is no doubt that Ben Shapiro was a tremendous influence on getting youth in the last 15 years to get involved, and still is. And frankly, I think, and I've disagreed with Ben I completely disagreed with him on the COVID vaccine, on the shutdowns and the masks and all that kind of stuff. I think he was totally wrong on all that initially, and then he actually sued the government to make sure that, and I think that was mostly due to Jeremy Boring, made sure that nobody was forced to do those things. So he came around and got on the right side of that, and I think saw the error of those ways. But other than that, he has been incredible. In fact, Charlie Kirk tweeted out Charlie Kirk said Dennis Prager and Ben Shapiro were two of the most important voices that had influenced his way of thinking, and two of the most important voices in the movement in articulating conservative values. So for these people that are trying to dismiss or cancel Ben Shapiro because he's simply been willing to stand up and say there's a right and wrong, and this kid is wrong, and we need to be willing to say no instead of coddling him and giving him even more of a platform. I respect Ben for doing that. I think he's absolutely 100% right in the things that he said. Yeah, I do think there is some sort of, Sandra, I think you're right. There is a level of separating the wheat from the chaff. I think this is one of those moments where I mean, look at some of the things Tucker has said in just the last few days. He hates Christian Zionists more than anyone else. I mean, that right there tells you. I mean, that means he hates me. He hates all of us that in any way believe as Christians we're supposed to support Israel, which is most of the Christian church, or at least it used to be. So he hates all of us? Really? Like, let me use Tucker's voice. He hates everyone? Really? I mean, that's what Tucker would do, right? Yeah, I think it is. I think it is a separating and revealing a lot of the false converts out there, revealing a lot of the false prophets, if you will. Even Tucker saying, that you shouldn't pay attention to the Old Testament at all. Really? I mean, that's honestly how a lot of movements get started, is ignoring a majority of the Bible like that and trying to rewrite what God actually tells us. So yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right, Sandra. It is a separating of the wheat from the chaff. Yeah, I think Jeremy, that is a great point. How do we stay focused and unified against the common enemy? At what point is the discussion divisive? This is something I struggle with. I'll be honest with you, and I think Ben struggled with how far to go with this. I think anybody does. I think Matt Walsh has come down in a different place where he doesn't want to engage in this at all, and wants to stay totally focused on what he sees as the most important fight, which is all domestic. And frankly, I respect that. But I come down on the side of there is a point at which if a poison is rising on your side, that you have to do something about that. In other words, if there's a disease spreading within the ranks of your army, you've got to address it at some point, or you'll lose more troops to the disease than you do to the enemy. I mean, that happened at Valley Forge and other places, right? We lost more to the weather and disease than we did actually on the battlefield. And there is a risk of that happening with this type of poison, because it really does. Not only does it eat your own and get them so hateful and just where they become toxic, but it then gives ammunition to the other side to prevent you from winning people over in the middle, because they label everybody on our side as being like these racist twerps that are getting a big audience. So I think it has to be taken on. I think we have to, at this point, speak against it. But I hope that doesn't last for long. So to your point, we come back to the real enemy. What's the real enemy? Well, the real enemy are the leftists amongst us in our nation, the communist threat from without and from within. And most of all, I think the biggest threat is the Islamic threat. I think this all of the attacks against Israel are helping Islam spread not only in the UK and Europe, but here in the United States, Australia. Look at all the places where it is taking over, literally taking over, and they're passing these Islamophobia laws that completely get rid of freedom of religion for anybody except Muslims. This is why Charlie Kirk said Islam is not compatible, or Sharia law is not compatible with Western civilization. So to Jeremy's point, we've got to keep our eyes on the main ball, the main fight. Unfortunately, it's kind of like me having to fight locally. I don't want to fight locally. I don't want to be involved in county politics. I don't want to be involved in land use regulations. I don't want to have to go spend all my time in doing the local politics in order to just simply build the campus so that we can fight the national fight. But I have to. It is what it is. It is the battle that has been brought. It's an existential threat. And so in order to prevent all of these lies about Patriot Academy from taking a root in our region, where they're calling us everything, every name in the book, and they've made people think things that are absolutely not true about us, we've got to divert some of our attention and our resources to fight that local battle. It's the same here in terms of trying to at least draw lines and take the right stand so that there is a clear moral clarity about right and wrong. Hope that makes sense. Oh, good. Hey, glad to hear your pastor enjoyed that Michigan conference. I agree. Deserves no quarter. Absolutely agree, Alex. Absolutely agree. Oh, thank you, Valerie. I totally forgot the shutdown. The shutdown has been so revealing of how unimportant these federal programs are and how much corruption is actually there. Have you heard these numbers? 40 million people on SNAP and getting all these welfare benefits. This is why in our very first Constitution class 15 years ago, we pointed out the definition of general welfare in the Constitution has nothing to do with individual welfare. It is unconstitutional and wrong to take from one American citizen and give to another American citizen to pay for their groceries or their health care or anything else. That is completely unconstitutional. The federal government should have nothing to do with your grocery bill or my grocery bill. Should have nothing to do with subsidizing all of these things. And it has become an absolute disaster and albatross on the economy. So that stuff's been revealed, but unfortunately, I don't think the political will is there in Washington, D.C. to curb it. I mean, they're actually, I'm having to listen to Republicans make the argument to open the government so that we can pay all these welfare benefits. What? No, you should be making the argument that had government not been involved in that at the federal level, then all the squabbling between Republicans and Democrats would not have affected these people. And if they are truly in need, I'm not against having a safety net and helping those that are in need, but it's supposed to be done through the individuals in the churches. We do a far better job than government could ever do. But at least if government's going to do it, it's at the local and state level, so all the squabbling in Washington, D.C. doesn't affect the help that you would give. And if we were doing it the right way, through our churches and through individuals, all the squabbling in Washington, D.C. or in your state capital would not affect the ability to help people in need. So I think we should take advantage of the opportunity here to make the arguments for the proper role of government, and it could be a win in the long run. So anyway, yeah, I don't know yet enough about the details in terms of what was agreed to get things opened up again. I haven't read much of that today. I think the vote just happened, right? Or it happened early this morning. So yeah, I don't know how much was agreed to. I hope we didn't cave. I hope it was the other side of the cave. We'll find out in the coming days. Okay, I don't see any questions that I missed. Some great comments. Thank you, everyone. Oh, Valerie, great point. The Bible says we should discern what or who to listen to. Usually the Holy Spirit tells us not to do or listen to something. That is such a good point. My friend Nicole Tice out in Delaware, she runs our Patriot Academy for the Northeast, and she runs the Delaware Family Policy Council, and she's actually the aunt to my oldest son's wife. So we're somewhat related somehow in there. And anyway, Nicole has always talked about your diet of information. What are you listening to? What are you putting into your brain? Who are your sources that you trust? It is so important. And Valerie, you're right. We need to pray for discernment because sometimes someone can sound really good, right? They might be. I think that's actually what led to the rise of these toxic people. Um, Andrew Tate's another one. This guy who is absolutely disgusting. Whereas with the Nazi twerp that is on the rise, this is a 26-year-old beta male that's actually a wimp, and just that obnoxious kid in the back of the room that. Uh, anyway, Tate is actually a much tougher, kickboxing masculine version of that, but an absolute jerk and an absolute sexist and the true toxicity. It doesn't have anything to do with masculinity. It has to do with evil. And I think both of these guys rose to prominence because of the vacuum that the church and godly manhood left. We allowed people to label the white male as evil. We allowed all of these leftist, Marxist, everything, all these people that wanted to destroy America to label white males as bad, to label success as bad. Showing up to a meeting on time is somehow white supremacy. I mean, all this insanity that we didn't speak out against and shun in the same way that I'm shunning these Nazis. Because that became so prominent, it created this frustration with the very people, the white males that were being attacked, frankly, all whites, and in many cases other groups as well. And it caused them to get so frustrated they were looking for somebody to at least say those things were stupid and wrong and racist. And so Andrew Tate did that, and the Nazi twerp did that. And so when they did that, then they wrapped it in all this hate. And then they were able to garner these audiences. And then Andrew Tate's telling these young men, go have sex with as many women, conquer as many women as you possibly can, and all this disgusting, vile stuff. And because he already had their attention and he had said some things that were actually true, then they bought the lies that he spread, and it was a poison in the youth young male market. That's exactly what's happening with this little Nazi twerp. He has risen to prominence because of these kernels of truth speaking out against what is one form of racism, but then he wrapped it in a totally a different form of racism. And so yeah, I think they need to be absolutely shunned and not platformed. Okay. All right. I think we went a whole hour. I love that they're trying to silence me with 70s music, All right, folks. Have a great week. I will see you in the tavern next Monday. Lord willing, I'll actually be in the tavern. And we've got a couple of great groups coming out to the Patriot Academy campus next week. A lot of good stuff coming up. We'll be announcing soon a Flashpoint weekend at the campus in January. So it's not public yet which weekend, and the details of the registration page are not up, but they will be soon. And then, of course, end of year donations. Encourage everybody, please consider supporting Patriot Academy and all these battles that we're in. We need fuel in the tank. So thank you for doing that at patriotacademy.com. That's it. God bless you. Have a good one. See you later.